She was 21, and she had nowhere left to go. Not the kind of nowhere that fades after a few days, but the kind that settles deep inside your chest and stays there. No family waiting for her. No money left to carry her through another night. Just a worn bag, a tired body, and $10 that felt like the last piece of control she had. And with that $10, she bought something no one else wanted. An old cinema, silent and forgotten. And somewhere behind that dark screen, something had been waiting. Something she was never meant to find. Before we continue, if stories like this mean something to you, hit subscribe and tell us in the comments where you are watching from. We love seeing how far these stories travel. Her name was Lila Carter. She grew up in a quiet town where nothing really changed. The same streets, the same faces, the same stories told over and over again. Her mother worked long hours at a diner, always tired, always trying. Her father had left when she was too young to understand why and old enough to feel it anyway. But there was one place that always felt different to her. The old cinema at the edge of town. It had been closed for years, its sign faded, its doors locked, its windows covered in dust. Most people walked past it without noticing, but Lila always stopped. Even as a child, she would stand outside and stare at it, imagining the stories that once filled that space. The laughter, the music, the quiet moments in the dark. Her grandfather used to take her there when it was still open. He never said much during the movies. He would just sit beside her, still and calm, like he belonged there more than anywhere else. Once, when she asked him why he loved that place so much, he told her something she never forgot. He said some places do not just hold stories. They keep them safe until someone is ready to hear them again. She did not understand it back then, but she remembered it. He passed away when she was 16, and after that, the world felt louder but emptier at the same time. Years went by. Small jobs, long days, quiet nights, trying to hold things together with whatever she could find. But things slowly slipped. Bills piled up. Arguments grew. And one day, it all broke. It was not one moment. It was many. Words said in anger. Doors closing harder than they should. Silence that stretched longer than it should. And then nothing. No place to return to. For days, Lila moved without direction. Sleeping where she could. Eating when she could. Watching the little money she had disappear faster than she expected. Until she saw it. A notice posted on a worn board outside a small shop. Property clearance, abandoned buildings. Most of it was land no one wanted. And then one line caught her attention. Old cinema building. $10. No details, no pictures, just an address she already knew. She stood there longer than she should have. Something inside her pulled her closer to that line. Not hope, not fear, something quieter. The next morning, she used her last $10. By the time she reached the cinema, the sun was already low. The building looked smaller than she remembered, but heavier somehow, like it carried something unseen. The doors opened with a slow creak. Inside, the air was thick with dust and silence. Rows of empty seats stretched into darkness. The screen stood at the front, large and still, like it was waiting for something that never came. She walked slowly down the aisle. Each step echoed softly. It should have felt empty, but it did not. There was something in the air, something beneath the quiet. She stayed that night inside the cinema, sitting in one of the old seats, staring at the blank screen, listening to the silence, the kind of silence that feels like it is holding its breath. The next morning, light filtered in through broken windows, touching parts of the room that had been hidden in darkness. She began cleaning, not because she had a plan, but because she needed something to hold on to. She moved through the rows, brushing dust away, straightening what she could, letting light come in. Hours passed. Then she noticed it. Behind the screen there was a narrow space, hidden by old curtains and broken panels. something most people would never look at twice. She stood there for a moment. Why would there be space behind something that was meant to be seen from the front? What was it hiding? The thought stayed with her all day. That night she sat again in the same seat, staring at the screen. But this time she could not stop thinking about what was behind it. By morning, she knew she had to look. She moved carefully, pulling back part of the old fabric, stepping into the narrow space behind the screen. It was darker there, the air cooler. Still, her hands brushed against the wall. And then she felt it, a slight shift in the surface. She leaned closer, running her fingers along it again, a loose panel. Her breath slowed. She hesitated. Then she pulled it open. Inside was a small hidden compartment, and within it, 3 things. A stack of old film reels, carefully wrapped but worn with time, a small metal box, and a folded letter. She reached for the letter last. Her hands trembled slightly as she unfolded it. The writing was steady, thoughtful. It spoke of a man who once owned the cinema, someone who believed stories were more than entertainment, that they were a way to understand the parts of ourselves we could not explain. He wrote about how the cinema had been his whole life, how he had stayed even when everyone else left, even when it stopped making sense. He wrote about loneliness, about holding on to something when everything else was slipping away, and then he wrote about the films, not the ones people came to watch, the ones he never showed, stories he created himself, moments he recorded, pieces of life that felt too real to share with the world. He hid them because he did not think anyone would understand. But he hoped that one day someone would find them. Someone who knew what it felt like to be lost. Someone who needed a place to begin again. At the end, he wrote that if she was reading this, it meant she had already taken the first step, not by finding the cinema, but by choosing to stay. Lila read the letter more than once. Each time something inside her shifted. Not loudly, not all at once, but enough. She looked around the hidden space, at the reels, at the quiet walls that had held this secret for so long. It did not feel empty anymore. It felt like it had been waiting. In the days that followed, she stayed. She found an old projector in a storage room, broken but not beyond repair. It took time, trial and error, small progress. Eventually, it worked. The first film she watched was one of his. It was not perfect. The frames were rough, the sound uneven, but it felt real. Scenes of ordinary life, people laughing, sitting together, watching sunsets, walking alone, moments that most people would never think to keep. But somehow, they mattered. She watched more, and slowly she began to understand. The cinema was never just a place to escape reality. It was a place to see it more clearly. Weeks passed. She cleaned more, fixed what she could, made the space livable again. And then, one evening, she opened the doors. Not for a crowd, just for anyone who might pass by. At first, no one came. Then one person, then another. People sat quietly, watching the films, feeling something they could not explain. No loud reactions, no big moments, just silence and connection. Lila stayed behind the projector most nights, watching the light flicker across the screen, listening to the quiet breathing of people sitting together. For the first time in a long time, she did not feel alone. Months later, the cinema was different. Not new, not perfect, but alive. And Lila was different too. Not fixed, but stronger, steady in a way she had never been before. One night after everyone had left, she sat in the front row, looking at the screen, not empty anymore, just waiting. She thought about her grandfather, about the way he used to sit beside her in silence, about the things he never explained fully, and she finally understood. Some places do not just hold stories. They hold people together, even when they do not know they need it. If this story meant something to you, Consider subscribing and being part of this journey with us, and tell us in the comments, have you ever found something in a place where you least expected it? Take care, and we will see you in the next story.